Do you want to know my origin story?
Yeah, tell me your origin story.
Alright, so it was a dark and stormy night
It
when
was.
all of a sudden
Eat that
me and
Prime Fall
a
44.
me and Aaron ran into this dark night. Me and Aaron didn't know how to react to this dark night, so we did what any dark knights would do, and we confused our names. So I called myself Aaron, and he called himself Ori, and we lived happily ever after.
What a beautiful origin story.
And then that's not where the story ends.
It's not.
No, there's more.
There is. Please, elaborate.
So basically,
Yeah, I'm listening.
they met up at a strange place where they were forced to learn multiplications and multiplications, and it's a subject called math and multiplications. What's it called? Yeah, I need help.
Geometry.
No, it's called math. What's the full word for math?
Mathematics.
Yeah, mathematics. They had to learn mathematics in this strange dungeon. They were forced to by these cavemen.
What?
Yes, they were forced to learn mathematics. And they also had to learn in another subject. They had to learn
What's it called?
PLT. They had to learn PLTW.
What's that?
It's where you learn about PLTWs.
Whoa. That's insane.
I know why. And
Tell me
basically,
more.
when you're at the PLTWs, you freaking chop off limbs and they feed it to their young.
Whoa.
So Corey and Aaron were learning about that, and they both failed the class. But they were only freshmen. They just learned how to. They just got into the new place, and what Corey and Aaron called, they call it high school because they were high in the sky, in the caves.
Whoa.
So basically, they were learning these stuff, and then a year went by, right? They had to learn a whole nother language called Spanish.
Oh.
But Corey and Aaron were good at Spanish, so they learned Spanglish.
Whoa. What's Spanglish?
And they grew closer than ever. And they fell in love and had babies forever, and had a very happy ending. but that's not where the story ended.
It's not?
Nope, there's more.
There is?
Yep. There's more. So basically, in the Spanglish class that they learned all the way in the dungeons and the high skies and the low high school, they wrote these stories of
Epic
these
proportions.
these stories about what they were going through, and like they wrote on their emotions, and like, you know, they
So it was like a diary?
it wasn't a diary, it was more like a photo gallery story. And basically they wrote these stories in hopes to one day meet the great great Gagalon.
Who's the Gagalon?
They wanted to meet this great great Gagalon who ran the great high school. They wanted to meet the great Gagalon and one day be him. But Korra and Aaron, they never left each other's side. And they loved each other like a father, and they were like a brother to each other. They were like brothers.
Wow.
That's not the end though.
It's not?
There's still more.
There
So
is?
another year went by. But this time, Aaron underwent a massive change in his craft. He burned his own arm off. And his whole family died.
What?
All of his 3 knight in shining dragons. Yeah, 3 of his knight in shining dragons and 2 of his knight in shining gargoyles. I believe that's how much dogs and cats die. I'm not sure. And how much gargoyles and dragons die? And your arm fire?
2 dogs and 1 cat.
Oh, so it was 2 dragons and 1 gargoyle. But as I was saying, Corey and Aaron were distant, and they were separated for a long time. But they sent messages by birds, by pigeons messages. They did it, and they worked on the photo gallery story. And they did it, and they did it, and they did it. And then by the next year, they mastered the art of photo growling. And these growlings, they were very special. What was the name I gave the freaking person? The great what?
I don't even remember.
Alright, I'll change his name because we can't remember. The Great Hamster Taxi.
Yeah.
This great hamster taxi would.
I'm your Uber. Hop on.
This great hamster taxi would drive a wedge between AA, Ron, and Corey.
They would?
Yes. And what Corey and Aaron did not know was that this hamster taxi was actually a secret engine spy.
From what agency?
State Farm. And this agency was named. What his friends and stuff called him was Logan.
Whoa.
He wasn't your average hamster taxi. He was a nasty, brutal, toxic, boisterous king. And what Aaron and Corey didn't know was that this would ruin their lives for the worst. And Aaron, he underwent massive changes in his life. And Corey, he joined the king Taxi's side. And Aaron was what's that word when they get expelled from the kingdom?
Banished?
Yeah, he was banished from the kingdom.
Whoa.
But Corey eventually fought the king. Fought him. He fought the king for his dear life. And I get shot to death. But this king was a brutal fool. Merciful. He did not want to let Corey survive. So he sent his mightiest of warriors to seduce and reduce Corey.
What happened after that?
So basically, Corey and the seducers and reducers, they all became friends. And the king was then dethroned, and Aaron was brought back into the kingdom. And then the next year, Corey and Aaron went back to the caves of High in the Sky School.
Is that the end of the story?
And then they lived a long and frothy life. The aim. So how'd you think?
That was a great story. But what about your cousin?
Oh, my cousin? So basically...
Yeah, and his brother.
So basically... Wait, what about them? That's not our origin story, that's their origin story.
Now let me tell you about it in my perspective. If I can remember every single detail.
Let's hear your
Okay, so one
Highness.
day, a little squeaker boy, Aaron, had his first day in high school. He had no friends, no idea what he was getting into.
That's right, he had no
But then, one day, he met this kid who was just like him, had no friends, and no idea what he was, what he got himself into, and then they became good co-workers inside the school, this high in the sky school, where they didn't get any pay, and they were tortured deep in the caves by the principal's underlings, which were called teachers. They underwent the torture and were able to escape with their lives out of the first year. But the second year was the greatest year that they have ever known. Well, besides that one thing that happened, but we won't talk about that.
That was true fact.
This was the year where they started changing their legacies. And then they became legends themselves. They got very popular, started hanging out with the cool kids. Just kidding, they sucked. They were still, what's the word? Introverts. They were still very much introverts. But they had themselves to keep company. But they made a lot more friends that year. Still. And they started writing a novel together. It's called The Adventures of Aaron and Corey. And they titled it The Adventures of Aaron and Corey. And then they had to Aaron had to undergo, well, by the end of the year, Aaron had to undergo a terrible fire in his garbage can of a home. And then his whole half of his body burnt off. And then he had to go get it replaced with robot parts. And then Aaron became half robot. He basically became Cyborg from Teen Titans.
That I remember that.
And then, cause the garbage can burned down, he had to move into a completely other state. And he lived horribly. He had terrifying dreams about the incident. Until one day, he got a text message from his best bud and his co-worker.
Oh yeah,
Corey.
He had to move far away. Aaron did.
He had to move all the way to a completely different state. That was by the end of the second year of torture. And then, once the second year of torture was over, what happened? Aaron had a nice new house. Because of everything that happened, it was ruined by an unforeseen death of Aaron's grandfather.
But what about Hamster Taxi?
Oh yeah, and then one day,
what's your side on that?
Aaron started buying Fortnite skins, and he actually wanted to start playing the game more.
No, you can't call it Fortnite.
I mean, he started buying Footloop skins, and then he became, he really started liking the game. Him and Corey had many adventures playing the game, until one day a snake came along and stole all his Fruit Loops, and his best friend joined up with the snake, and they began laughing at him just because he didn't have the right skill or the right look or the
right Fruit Loops. He didn't have the right Fruit Loops.
He didn't have the right Fruit Loops. He didn't have the right color of Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
So Aaron went to go play a different game. No, just kidding. He stayed on the game crying about not playing. And then Aaron fell into a dark pit of despair. Until one day, his best friend pulled him out of that dark pit. And then everybody started to go against the snake. Until the snake was banished from the forest. And then, while everybody was having a great time playing Fruit Loops, Aaron was still stuck being a loner at the other high school. High torture chamber. So Aaron decided that he would lay it back a little and not do so much work in the high torture chamber. So his grades started showing it. They started giving him a 1 out of 10 on the torture chamber marks. And then once the year was over, Aaron went back to his old place. Old garbage can was remodeled, brand new, and they didn't even finish the bottom half of the trash can. But he still moved back to the trash can, happy as can be, and he got a lot of things out of it. So going into the 4th year, everything was great. He got to go back and meet his old co-workers at the torture chamber, back in his old high torture chamber.
But what he didn't know was that his old friend that he once known had become a giant, and he became really tall.
Yeah, when Aaron came back, everyone was so much taller than he was.
Yes, they were all giants.
All his co-workers and all the torture leaders, they were all taller than him, except for one torture leader. Except for a few torture leaders. And then, one fateful day, he became friends with his old co-worker, and then his co-worker betrayed him like he did before to everyone else. But that's a different story. This story. And then Aaron met with Corey, and they had a bunch of fun together. They even ended up getting married and had a couple of They wrote a bunch of novels together, and Aaron even started writing his own novel, and he was pretty good at it.
Yeah, and Corey hated his new novel.
Judged him harshly for it.
Yes.
And he was mad that Aaron didn't do it with him.
And he hates Aaron's new novel.
He wants to burn Aaron's new novel.
He wants to drown Aaron's new
But then one day, Aaron showed him a page of his novel, and Core was very happy about it.
Yeah.
Just kidding, he still thinks it sucks.
And I ripped the page of his novel out, so I figured that.
And now...
But that's pretty much it, isn't it? For your part?
In the end, they lived happily ever after, and they even went to go skate, which Aaron wasn't very good at.
Skate on what?
Land.
Land skating, never heard of that one.
Skate landing. And that's it. That's the end.